G'day friends and fans, and welcome to Dave Talks Stuff Ukraine War Update for the 13th of August 2025. I'm your host, the author David Applegate, author of the books The Boyhood of Cade, Power Games, Into the Ozbound, and The Erotic Tales from the Empire. Thank you to all those who support the channel, and you can support the channel by buying my books, buying my merch, and joining my Patreon. All my links are in the link tree. QR code on the side, or wait till after the show. Appreciate each and every one of you, and I'm sure that you're here for the truth and not for the mainstream nonsense. And of course, as you know, the mainstream is pretty much pro-Ukrainian to the detriment of truth. Ukraine isn't interested in truth. Zelensky is a criminal holding on to power. He's not the legitimate president of Ukraine. His term has expired. The courts have told him to arrange meet, but nobody will stand up. Nobody will kick this criminal who cannot understand normal thinking out of office. Trump has tried to be reasonable. Now, the media is not reasonable. They are trying to push the narrative that somehow Ukraine is the winner and that Ukraine could dictate the terms of peace, and that only Ukraine could dictate the terms of peace, which is pretty much daring Russia to cut the head off the snake. Because Zelensky, the coward, is not exactly a prime target. Killing him won't do anything. It won't stop the war. It'll only make him a martyr for which he wants. Okay, his life is over. He's danced with the devil. He's like that criminal at the end of is it Godfather 2? He says, "Go ahead and kill me. I've tasted every pleasure." You know, doesn't care anymore. Is it Godfather 2, the one? Yeah. I'm pretty sure that most people understand. Trump is accepting talks with Putin. Putin says, we'll talk, we'll meet. And Trump says, we are going to work out how to bring about the Ukraine war end. And that's why he doesn't want to talk with Zelensky, because he wants Putin to open up and tell him everything and then work out. But Zelensky in Europe isn't interested in peace. They're interested in getting their way. This is what little people do. This is what weak people do. They keep hiding behind power. Now, Merkel 2.0 has arranged a series of meetings with European leaders. We'll call for Trump and Vance. And, of course, separate discussions about the so-called Western countries allied with Ukraine. Again, it's all basically chest-beating, a bunch of Eurocrats who can't seem to work out that their desires to plant missiles in Russia, in Ukraine, so they can threaten Russia, so that to make Russia dance to their tune, is nothing short of imperialism. Now, Trump has said he wants to gauge whether or not Putin is serious. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. But the European allies are acting like a bunch of old ladies, you know, can't make up their mind what they want. They keep demanding safety without actually offering anything, tangible to say that, well, you know what? What's to stop you from being a threat to Russia? Do you ever consider the other side's concerns? Nah, bro, we just want to get our way, says Europe. And you wonder why things keep going wrong. Why can't anybody call out Ukraine as the obstacle to peace? Seems obvious to me. Russia keeps advancing, and yet it's not that fast. It's like watching molasses, just creeps along. So there was fighting, drones were exchanged, Ukraine claims to have shot down lots of drones, Ukraine claims that Russia only attacks civilians, Zelensky lies about everything, and is not interested in peace. And, of course, he goes around begging for more. More money, more allies, more support. But he's running out. People are asking the basic fundamental questions. What are you going to do? Because remember, Zelensky's waged war since he got into office. He's not a man of peace. He has he's nothing left to offer. He's gambled the country's entire future. And the Ukrainian military don't care because as far as they're concerned, all they need to do is hold out and wait for that miracle joining of the EU. And they're suddenly in the land of milk and honey. Because that's the great globalist / communist promise, isn't it? Make the workers work to feed the gluttonous, the envious, the greedy, the selfish, the iniquitous. Whether they be politicians. So, the Ukraine military doesn't care about Ukrainians because they think, we're going to be Eurocrats. We're going to ride the gravy train of the European worker. So, Russia's opening up new offensives, so is Ukraine. So, you can't say Ukraine is the victim when they're being just as equally aggressive with drone strikes, and they're not defending themselves, they're taking offensive action. And then claiming that, we took 1%, we took this one little piece of Kursk. And then they say, you want it back, you give us all eastern Ukraine. It's like, and then Russia swats that fly and says, fuck you. I mean, this is the problem. The moron mentality out there that Ukraine is somehow stunning and brave. It's easy for politicians to point a gun at somebody and say, you go fight or I kill you. Sooner or later, people are going to start standing up more and more. You're going to see lots of trouble. Now, and of course, you're going to see more Ukrainian surrender. I mean, I said at some point, Ukraine is going to start mass surrendering. And Russia has launched its, would you say its final summer offensive? Now, it doesn't seem to be big, and on the scale of the war, it's still small, but still, it's quite the, with some minor success already, it's quite spread out. It's not everywhere. And of course, some of it is in areas that have already been on the offensive, but Travis Yar's rather quiet. But as you can see, Russia's making bold advances in some areas. And they've overrun, as I said, they're going around these towns. They're going to cut them off to go after the rockets. Because Ukraine, the problem with rocket artillery is it takes a lot of time to load. And they can shoot it off very quickly, though. But then they've got to reload. But as you can see, a lot of areas have been overrun by the Russians. As Trump said, the Ukrainians were waiting for the Russians to come down the highway, and the Russians crossed the field. They're going around. They're basically saying Ukraine's been outmaneuvered. See, they could have come down the highway, but they didn't. They are fighting, though, on this town, what's left of it. They're fighting in this town, what's left of it. And they're grinding away here. And the Ukrainians here are just going to sit there and go, when it's our turn. That's the problem. Russia's lured Ukrainians away from one position. So, this could have been a false start. Or they abandoned the plans to go up here to circumvent this because they had a breakthrough in other areas. But as you can see, they're renewing the offensive on the Western Front. And taking more territory here. Not much. Not much at all. Fighting down here. Not much at all, but you look, all this keeping drone strikes in Zaporozhye and drone strikes across Ukraine. Not much else happening because the Kursk Bridge still stands, much to the ire of Zelensky. Again, Kiev thinks it can set the terms that they claim they're open to a ceasefire, an air truce, real peace talks, but the scenario comes with conditions, particularly comprehensive conditions. For the beginning of proper negotiations, Russia must withdraw, Russia must offer us billions of dollars, Putin must stand down. There is no peace while the occupiers are on Ukrainian soil. You might as well say Zelensky is deliberately sabotaging peace talks. Because have you no one ever throughout history, the Mongols beat Persia, and the Persians turn around and say, okay, peace talk time, you go home and we'll have peace talks. Saladin, when he beat the Crusaders, he says, okay, I'm going home now for peace talks. No, he told them, you go home, we won. Ukraine is convinced that Trump's going to sell them out, according to Politico. Yeah, exactly. This is the kind of political misinformation, but millions out there are so low IQ, so selfish, so uninformed, so obtuse that they actually believe Ukraine's winning. Of course, Russia hasn't conquered Ukraine. Ukraine's free. Russia must withdraw. They're lost. The question is, according to Viktor Orban, is when will Kiev's backers admit defeat? When that they have failed to stop the Russian war machine. Now there is probably, as I said, panic because they don't know what to do. Because I think their plan revolved on stopping the Russians, and for some reason they put everything into stopping them here, which they did, stopping them here, which they did, and holding them here, which they haven't, because Russia says, okay, we'll smash through, go around, went through Donetsk, went all the way down through here. It just went all the way through to Kherson. and then started opening up more and more fronts, flanking their entire lines. And they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. They poured the bulk of the defence into this line, which once they'd taken Mariupol, they just basically poured through behind it. They didn't stop. Once they poured through, once they broke out, they landed on the coast and kept going, spreading out, taking Mariupol and then all the way to Kherson. They relied on these vertical lines no mobile infantry. Okay, all their mechanized infantry was basically rolls out of a bunker, shoots off, and then goes back behind their artillery lines. But multiple towns. This is, of course, as I said, coming up here, cut this off. They may cut it off completely once they sever this. They're up there. That's a huge leap forward in a few days compared to others. This line here is unable to stop them. They are this line does not appear to be as strong as this line. This line's held the Russians for nearly 3 years. But the Russians flanked them. They've smashed city after city in this line and taken all of this territory. Because there was virtually no horizontal or second. They keep talking of pro-Ukrainian channels about this great network of defence. What they didn't tell you is it's only in segments. Once Donetsk fell, there was nothing after it. Once Mariupol fell, the Ukrainians were fighting basically piecemeal pockets. Most of this fell. It's only now that they've organised lines of defence, and most of those lines of defence are mines. But Ukraine keeps saying we're going to talk, but then they say, no, it has to be on our terms. Ukraine's stance is that it will not make any concessions over its borders. That's not how war works, bro. When you lose, you lose. It's like losing an election. You don't turn around and say, no, we can see, no. You may have won the election, but we're still in power. And that's the Democrat mindset. No wonder they like Zelensky in Europe. Of course, they keep talking about Kiev's backers because it's not just the United States. And of course, now it's primarily UK, France, and Germany. And many critics of the Alaska Summit are all wrong about what it is about. It is not a peace talk. It is to set what the agenda, what is it? What is the non-negotiables and what are the negotiables? It is setting the parameters to sit two people down and Trump to say, this is the line. You accept it. That's it. Okay? Now, I think perhaps if people were intelligent, and if I had enough followers, I could say to you all, make a phone call. Just have it quite simple. Perhaps it is time to consider, right, removing Zelensky. Or that's the condition, right? If Zelensky keeps saying, no, we won't accept, then he says, you go to the front line. Or Europe has to say, I mean, this is the problem. When you endlessly when you're endlessly pouring other people's money, right? Bureaucrats don't care about your needs, your wants, your desires. They care about their legacy, their approval amongst their academics, how they're going to reflect in the history books. But apparently, American, Colombian and Danish nationals were reportedly killed in a training camp in a Russian strike in late July. Of course, Ukraine only says that they hit they didn't hit a training camp. No, it was a marching band. They tried to pass this off as a marching band. Now, this actually come up somewhere before that Taiwan has been sending its special forces to Ukraine. It's rather bold and risky move, but and it's unfortunate that the Taiwanese have paid the price. But perhaps, and I don't think it's 15,000, I think it's way more than that. But I think these foreign mercenaries make more of an impact than people realise. But Ukraine constantly complains about Russia and its foreign fighters. Now Zelensky's doomed, according to the Vietnamese, and that the knockout blow will come. That they agree with the assessment from Viktor Orban. This isn't saying, the Vietnamese have come out and agreed with Viktor Orban. That there's something Zelensky's backers simply cannot accept. But many are worried that there'll be a false flag attempt to try and drag the US into a war. That's happened before. Don't believe me? Gulf of Tonkin. Now, intelligence from multiple sources has indicated that there's been a planned provocation by the Ukrainian regime to sabotage the summit. One of the alleged, how do we say without upsetting YouTube, the guy who was not so friendly to President Trump on the golf course, was a Ukrainian recruiter. You know at least two of the very unfriendlies who took some provocative action towards President Trump that resulted in some terminations of said attempt to upset President Trump. You know, right, that these people who committed violence against President Trump were all involved with Ukraine. They were all pro-Ukrainian. Two of them worked for Ukraine. One was an active Ukrainian recruiter for mercenaries to go to Ukraine. So you're not telling me that Kiev isn't up to no good? Oh, I know how Trump thinks. He's a very dynamic person. He's going to always... He never goes in. Remember, back in the ABC interview, do you trust Putin? He said, I don't even trust you. Yeah, there is no trust. There is only verify. Right? Trump has the information before him, and now he wants Putin to basically look at it, give his response, and Trump will know whether or not, based on those responses, that Putin is going to make a deal or not. And remember, Trump has made more deals than we've had hot dinners, all right? He's dealt with corrupt politicians before, and that's just in New York. And just think about how many he deals with every day. He's surrounded by people who are constantly both looking for approval and to undermine others. Pardon me. One of the provocations, of course, and has happened before, was Ukraine to cause mass civilian casualties like they did in 2022 in Donetsk, because the Western media will not document it. They will immediately document the incident, but in their interest, in their eyes, they will blame Russia, like they've done before. When Russia told Ukraine to stop killing ethnic Russians, Ukraine didn't stop, so Putin threatened invasion. He gave him a timeline. Zelensky just called out Russia and said, "You would never invade." That is the coward. That is directly on Zelensky. And until people en masse, whether it's Tucker Carlson or many others, start calling out Zelensky, 100% document everything that Zelensky's done, because it doesn't seem to get through to people what I'm saying. That until this is dealt with, we're not going to have peace. Until America stands up to its allies and says, stop funding war criminals. You've got to realize that the enemy doesn't care how many crimes they commit, but you can't commit them back. You just cannot win over, right? You cannot invade Ukraine and win them over, okay? But Putin is not going into Ukraine unopposed, but as he's advancing, those who oppose him, they're leaving. Because the vast majority, they support him. 70% support. Most of Ukraine hates Zelensky. They're sick of this war. So it's not just the million dead. Okay? It's the fact that Ukraine is broken, corrupt, and all they hear from Zelensky is, we're going to get Russia to rebuild. We're going to hurt Russia. We have to hurt Russia. We have to kill Putin. And all the average Ukrainian hears is he doesn't want peace. Just go away. You don't, put Zelensky on the front line, because that's what he is. He's a coward. Okay? Those who want war should fight wars. All these YouTubers who support Ukraine, put them on the front line. They'll stop once they learn the truth about Ukraine. But that's the problem. They don't want the truth. They want clicks. They want views. They want their ego stroked. They want their oppression narratives confirmed. Don't trust a single person who supports Ukraine, because they're supporting war. And those who support war, if they don't fight it, are cowards. You have to fight a war. If you support it, you have to fight in it. Otherwise, you're just a coward sending others to die for your ego. And what has Zelensky done for you? Or what will he do for you other than put his hand in your pocket? Because that is all Ukrainians have done since the 1930s, have put their hands in other people's pockets. And they have no pride You see? They have no fear. They'll actually attack you if you speak against them. That is how selfish Ukraine is. It's a toxic relationship. And by getting involved in foreign wars, you've heard it so many times from libertarians, getting involved in foreign wars only creates problems. They exploit you. And that's what we're seeing with Ukraine. Ukrainians exploiting Western sympathy and Western imperialism exploiting Ukraine. And the left, haven't we heard from the last 50 years how they stood against Western imperialism? But once they're in power, nah, bro, rules are for thee. So thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, and please support the channel. You can support me on Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. All my links are in the link tree, description below, or in my profile. The link tree, of course, you can also scan the QR code on the screen. Again, thank you for watching. Really appreciate it. Can you give us a like, please? Because YouTube is changing the algorithms. If videos don't get likes, they don't get recommended. They keep changing the rules all the time on us. You know, they are trying to squeeze out. They're trying to squeeze out. Every day they make suggestions. Make better thumbnails. It's like, yeah, thanks, Captain Obvious. What's a better thumbnail? Work it out for yourself, of course. So, who knows, right? I'm not paying hundreds of dollars a month for thumbnails. Actually, I'm running out of hard drive space. Better go. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.